Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. 3 years ago, I was living the dream. I was engaged to Liam, 32 male, the man I believed was my soulmate. Liam and I had been together for 4 years, and everything seemed perfect. He was charming, thoughtful, and had this way of making me feel like the most important person in the world. I trusted him with my heart and my future, never suspecting the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. We were planning a beautiful fall wedding. I'd spent months poring over every detail, choosing the venue, picking out the perfect dress, and even hand-making some of the decorations. The closer we got to the wedding, the more excited I became. I couldn't wait to walk down the aisle and start our lives together as husband and wife. I was so consumed with the wedding preparations that I didn't notice the cracks forming in our relationship. Or maybe I didn't want to see them. My best friend, Sophia, 30 female, was right by my side through it all. She was my maid of honor, the person I trusted most in the world besides Liam. We'd been inseparable since college, and I never doubted her loyalty. Sophia was the one I called first when Liam proposed. She helped me pick out my dress, addressed envelopes for the invitations, and organized my bridal shower. If someone had told me that she was capable of betraying me, I would have laughed in their face. A week before the wedding, everything changed. It was a typical busy day. I had just picked up my wedding dress from the boutique, and I was feeling that giddy, butterflies in my stomach excitement that comes with being so close to the big day. Liam and I were supposed to have dinner that evening to finalize the seating chart and go over some last-minute details, but he canceled at the last minute, claiming he was swamped at work. I didn't think much of it at the time. Liam was an architect, and deadlines sometimes kept him at the office late. But looking back, there had been other signs, subtle ones, that I had ignored. He had seemed distant in recent weeks, but I chalked it up to pre-wedding jitters. After all, planning a wedding is stressful, right? The next morning, I woke up to a text message, not a call, not a face-to-face conversation, a text message. It said, "I can't do this. I'm so sorry. I've fallen in love with someone else, and I need to be honest with myself and with you. I hope someday you'll understand." At first, I thought it was a cruel joke. I stared at my phone, rereading the message over and over, trying to make sense of it. My heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking. I tried calling Liam, but he didn't answer. I called him again and again, each time more frantic, but he never picked up. Panic set in. My thoughts were racing, and I couldn't breathe. Who was this someone else? Why hadn't he said anything sooner? Why did he wait until a week before our wedding to drop this bombshell? Why he did it on the phone? I couldn't believe the man I had planned to spend my life with had just walked away with a few lines of text. Desperate for answers, I called Sophia. I thought maybe she could talk some sense into Liam or help me figure out what was going on. I needed my best friend to talk to and her shoulder to cry on, but she didn't answer either. Hours later, I got a message from Sophia. My heart sank. "I don't even know what to say. We didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." For a moment, I couldn't process what I was reading. It felt like time had stopped. My fiance had left me for my best friend. The two people I trusted most in the world had been sneaking around behind my back, and now they were running off together. I felt like I had been stabbed in the chest. The next few days were the most humiliating and painful of my life. I had to call every vendor and explain that the wedding was off. I had to face my family and friends, all of whom had been so excited to celebrate our love. The whispers and pitying looks were unbearable. Everyone wanted to know what happened, but I couldn't even put it into words without breaking down. Meanwhile, Liam and Sophia wasted no time starting their new life together. They packed up and moved to another city within a week of canceling the wedding. They claimed they needed a fresh start to focus on their relationship without the judgment of others. It was like they thought they were the victims in all of this, not me. I spiraled into deep depression. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and could barely get out of bed. I replayed every moment of my relationship with Liam in my head, trying to figure out what I had missed. Were there signs? Was I blind? How could I have been so stupid? Enter Ryan, 33 male, Liam's best friend and the man who would eventually become my salvation. Ryan had been set to be Liam's best man. I didn't know him all that well. We were friendly, but our interactions had mostly been limited to double dates and group outings. When Ryan found out what Liam and Sophia had done, he was furious. He reached out to me, offering his support and asking if I needed help with anything. At first, I thought Ryan was just being polite, but he kept showing up, bringing me groceries when I hadn't eaten for days, helping me cancel wedding arrangements, and listening without judgment as I cried and vented. He didn't try to fix me or tell me to move on. He just sat with me in my pain and let me grieve. Ryan quickly became my rock. He didn't just help me survive, he helped me start living again. He encouraged me to go back to therapy, reconnect with friends, and rediscover the things that made me happy. Over time, our friendship deepened into something more. I was hesitant at first. Dating Liam's best friend felt like crossing a line. But Ryan was so amazing, I couldn't help but fall in love with him. He treated me with a level of love and respect I hadn't realized I was missing. I finally realized that I was so blind in my relationship with Liam. We were never a perfect match. We were so different. And Ryan was the man I was looking for all my life. Now, I'm thankful to Liam because I thought he gave me a box of darkness, but only now I realized that it was a gift. A year after we started dating, Ryan proposed. His proposal wasn't flashy or over the top. It was simple, heartfelt, and perfect. We got married in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. It wasn't the elaborate wedding I had once dreamed of, but it was better because it was real. For the first time in years, I felt truly happy. Fast forward to last month. I hadn't heard from Liam or Sophia since they left town, but I had heard through the grapevine that their relationship had imploded. Apparently, Sophia wasn't the perfect woman Liam thought she was, and they had broken up less than 2 years after running off together. I didn't care. As far as I was concerned, they were a closed chapter in my life. So imagine my shock when Liam showed up at my office one afternoon. I almost didn't recognize him. He told me he'd been working up the courage to reach out and that he wanted to apologize for what he'd done. Then he dropped the bombshell. He wanted me back. He said leaving me for Sophia was the biggest mistake of his life and that he still loved me. He begged for a second chance, claiming he'd grown up and realized how much I meant to him. I stared at him, trying to process what I was hearing. This man, who had destroyed my life with a text message, humiliated me, and left me for my best friend, was now asking for another chance? I couldn't help it. I started laughing. Not a little chuckle, but a full-on, uncontrollable laugh. It was just so absurd. Liam looked hurt, which only made me laugh harder. "Are you serious?" I finally managed to say. "You think you can just waltz back into my life after everything you did?" Then he noticed my wedding ring. His face fell. "You got married?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," I said, unable to hide my smirk. "So who's the lucky guy?" he asked. "I'm married to Ryan," I said. His face turned red with anger. "You married him? My best friend? How could you do that to me?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Do that to you?" I repeated. "Are you seriously accusing me of betrayal? You left me for my best friend a week before our wedding. You don't get to play the victim here." But Liam wouldn't let it go. He accused me of stabbing him in the back and said I was just as bad as he was. I calmly told him to leave and never contact me again. As he stormed out, he shouted something about how I would regret this and how I was a heartless, dirty bee. I didn't even bother responding. When I got home and told Ryan what happened, we both laughed about it. The irony of Liam accusing me of betrayal was just too much. Now, part of me wonders if I was too harsh. But honestly, I don't think I owe Liam anything. He made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. I've moved on, built a life with someone who truly loves and respects me, and I couldn't be happier. If Liam can't handle that, it's his problem, not mine. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for laughing in my ex-fiance's face when he accused me of betraying him? The audacity of this man is absolutely mind-blowing. He literally dumped OP over a text a week before their wedding to run off with OP's best friend. And now he has the nerve to accuse OP of betrayal? Honestly, I admire OP's restraint for not laughing in his face even harder. Good for OP for moving on and finding happiness with someone who actually deserves her. And now let's hear the community's opinion. I'm sitting here fuming on your behalf. Liam doesn't get to waltz back into your life and play the victim after the stunt he pulled. And calling you a hypocrite. The man has absolutely no self-awareness. You owe him nothing, and honestly, you handled it perfectly by laughing. He deserved every second of it, not the a-hole. I can't believe the gall of this guy. He destroyed your life, humiliated you, and ran off with your best friend, only to come crawling back when his little fairy tale didn't work out. And the fact that he had the nerve to call you out for marrying Ryan is absolutely insane. I hope you and Ryan had an extra laugh about this later, because the karma here is mwah, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Liam isn't mad because you betrayed him. He's mad because you moved on and built a better life without him. He thought you'd be sitting around waiting for him to realize his mistake, and now he's furious that you're thriving. Good for you for laughing in his face. He deserved every bit of it. Enjoy your happiness with Ryan, and don't give Liam another second of your time. About 2 weeks ago, me and my fiance held a barbecue for both of our families. During the barbecue, my stepbrother spent a lot of time talking to my future father-in-law about his latest business idea. My father-in-law is a successful entrepreneur and currently owns several very profitable businesses, so I assumed he was trying to get some business advice from him. It turns out my stepbrother asked my father-in-law to invest a substantial amount into this idea, and my father-in-law said he would consider it. A few days later, I was at my mom's for lunch, and my stepbrother, he lives with our parents, was bragging about how my father-in-law was going to invest in the business. My stepdad and sister-in-law were super excited and kept talking about this was finally going to be the thing that made them. This isn't the first investment my stepbrother has tried to get from my future family. A few years ago, when he was still my boyfriend, he tried to convince my fiancé to invest in a separate idea. It ended up falling through because my stepbrother lost interest in the idea. Personally, I don't want my family to mix business with my in-laws, because I feel like when things get messy, it's going to be me who has to deal with the fallout. It also puts unnecessary pressure on my relationship, which I'd prefer to avoid. The next day, my father-in-law invited us, me and my fiancé, over to discuss wedding plans. Whilst we were there, my stepbrother's business idea was brought up. My father-in-law asked me some questions about his work ethic, his previous business experience, and if I was comfortable with him investing. I answered honestly. My stepbrother did not have a very good work ethic. He dropped out of uni because it was too much work and left several jobs for the same reason. He previously opened a business with his best friend and it failed due to their laziness, and that I feel uneasy if he invested. But it was entirely his decision and he shouldn't not invest because of me. I did mention that he had some good ideas, but lacked the drive to fulfill them, so maybe with my father-in-law's help he could achieve his potential. Well, my father-in-law decided not to invest. My stepbrother, stepdad, and sister-in-law have been blowing my phone up with texts and calls, calling me a bee for lying. I didn't, and that I always wanted to be the one on top, and that I ruined their life. My sister-in-law was crying over the phone, and told me how I'd ruined their chance of getting their own places. Turns out some of the money my father-in-law was going to invest was going towards getting their own place. And how they'd never have kids because of me. My parents have said they won't support them if they decide to have kids whilst under their roof. My mom stayed out of it. I do feel bad because I know how much my sister-in-law wants to have children, but I have a really good relationship with my in-laws right now, and if the business didn't work out, it could ruin that. Was I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It sounds like you did your future father-in-law an enormous favor. I think you're spot on that family and business don't mix. Your stepbrother is the a-hole, and sister-in-law and stepdad are too, for thinking this is their ticket. Maybe try some hard work. They were going to use investment money to buy a house, get their own place? How does that further their business? Sounds like your father-in-law dodged a bullet. Not the a-hole. Father-in-law asked for a truthful opinion. You gave it. Besides, your father-in-law is not the only investor out there. If your stepbrother's idea is amazing, he can find other investors that are not your fiancé's family. Not the a-hole. You saved your father-in-law from a lot of trouble. If your business hinges on a single investor, that is already trouble. And hearing stuff like, turns out some of the money my father-in-law was going to invest was going towards getting their own place, sounds terrifying to me. It is very likely criminal even. Is this money an investment or a real estate loan? It sounds like they were going to use your father-in-law for his money. I, 48 male, have a 19-year-old son who was the product of my first marriage. When my son was 9, my late wife passed away from cancer. When we were both 25, she had used 80% of her inheritance to buy a gas station. She quit her job and for 5 years focused on the gas station. The first few years were rough, and we needed the money I made from my job as a waiter to supplement our lifestyle. In the 2 years before her death, I became involved in the day-to-day operations. In her will, the gas station was left entirely to me. However, she indicated that she hoped I could teach my son about the business, because while some families pass down homes, this was her legacy. I have since remarried to my wife, 42 female. She has a 15-year-old son from a previous relationship who I consider my own. The business is smooth enough that we can mostly be absentee owners. My wife, however, has been working there all day every Saturday for a while now. She often brings my stepson to work. Regretfully, I was too wrapped up with life's events to spend much time teaching my son about the business. I recently have become sick, and my wife has constantly brought up my will, and so has my older son. We have had many fights where she has stormed out and not come back for hours, when I told her that my late wife wanted her son to get it eventually. Because the medication I take gives me feelings of anxiety and depression, it is extra painful when my wife will not want to talk to me because she is upset. She said that it was not fair to my stepson that I tell him I consider him my son, yet I would not be leaving him part ownership of the business, our greatest marital asset and legacy, to him. I had originally set up my will so all my assets outside the business would go to my wife, and then she'd get 10% of the station. My other assets would give her around half my estate, and the business stake was just in case she needed more financial stability. My stepson gets a trust, but the remaining 90% would go to my son. But I feel torn because I really do not know what is right anymore. After a heart-to-heart, I changed my will so that my wife, stepson, and my son would each have 1/3 of the business. The rest of my will remained the same. When my son got home from college and I decided to take him out so we could be alone, I broke the news to him gently that he would have to split the business equally with his stepmother and stepbrother. He was silent for a long time. He told me he believed his stepmom would end up trying to force a sale with his stepbrother eventually. He then said this didn't come as a shock to him, but he was sure his late mother would have been surprised and told me to think on that. Then he walked out and has avoided me since. Am I the a-hole for doing what I have done? I already see the tension in the house, and I feel like I always come home and walk into the aftermath of an argument between him and his stepmom. Yes, the a-hole. You are disrespecting your late wife's wishes and letting your current wife ruin the relationship with your son. Yes, the a-hole. This station was purchased with your son's mother's inheritance. You know that your first wife wanted the business to go to her son. You are allowing your current wife to push you into her demands. She only works on Saturdays, so it isn't as though she has poured her life into ensuring the business is successful. However, it sounds as though your deceased wife did. By splitting it into thirds, you are ducking your son over. Your stepson and wife will have the majority ownership together. Not to mention, why the hell are you giving stepson an equal share as your son? It isn't as though this is just some random piece of property. The strong financial and historical ties to your son's mother make this an easy and clear answer. Yes, the a-hole. Your wife is manipulating you and you're falling for it. Your late wife didn't marry your current wife. Your son will never forgive you. She made you choose and you didn't pick your son. You're giving away his half too, not only yours. My husband of 3 years and I live in a coastal community with our blended family. 4 kids, 11, 8, 6, and 2. 2 days ago, a mandatory evacuation was ordered for our area due to Hurricane Laura. My mother-in-law had previously offered us a place to stay if we had to leave, and we did as fast as we could. My sister-in-law was also evacuating there with her husband, her 11-year-old, and her 26-year-old son. My brother-in-law also offered us a place at his house, but it's smaller and would mean asking his teenager to give us her room. We didn't want to spring that on her last minute. Mother-in-law has plenty of space, and we've stayed there with sister-in-law's family comfortably many times. I needed a good place to work while I was there. Sister-in-law would be working too, but I always set up in a very small office room and figured she would probably use mother-in-law's bedroom office, which has way more space. It took us about 6 hours to get there, and when we arrived at 8 p.m., we were all tired and grouchy. Mother-in-law met us as we drove up to the house and directed us to park in front of her storage shed, which is a short walk from the house. She's on a ranch with several acres. I wasn't even out of the car when she started ushering the kids inside the shed to explain the sleeping arrangements. Apparently, she had spent the day turning the shed into a guest house for my family. To give an accurate picture here, this is a maybe 120 square foot shed, generously estimated, separated into two small rooms. It's not insulated, but there is a small window AC unit in the back room. Most recently, her youngest son used it as a grow house for mushrooms. Before that, it was stacked with boxes, old furniture, and was home to local bugs, rodents. She had cleaned it out and put in a pull-out love seat for the kids and a cot each for my husband and I. There was also a TV, mini fridge, and a small table with a chair in the back room for me to work. Mother-in-law explained to my kids that everything they needed was out there, so there would be almost no reason at all to go inside the actual house. There's no bathroom, no running water. Wi-Fi is spotty, and my office phone has to plug directly into a router, which is inside the house. Our toddler still wants warmed up milk at night, but no microwave in the shed. It's a short walk to the house, but it's dark and coyotes are sometimes an issue, so the smaller kids can't go alone at night. Sister-in-law and her family would be split between the house's two large guest bedrooms. She would be working inside and would be too busy for kids to be in the house. Frankly, I was stunned, speechless, and fighting tears. My husband was angry and embarrassed. He politely thanked mother-in-law for her trouble, but explained that it couldn't work for us. He got us back in the car, called his brother, and we drove another 2 hours to his house. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law are mad they did so much work for nothing, and say we should have planned to stay at brother-in-law's in the first place to accommodate sister-in-law's job. Am I the a-hole? Edit. It's possible that I'm angry, offended, and not seeing their side. We do have a big family, and sister-in-law isn't used to working from home with kids present. Mother-in-law did put in a lot of work to fix up the shed, but it's still a shed, and my kids are used to being home while I work. They're very respectful. Still, maybe we should have taken sister-in-law into consideration. I just wish they had called us with those arrangements, rather than surprising us after a 6-hour drive with 4 scared, cranky kids. Not the a-hole. I debated whether to give your mother-in-law the benefit of the doubt that she meant well, but no. There is no way she genuinely thought it'd be totally fair to offer 2 full guest rooms to a couple with 2 older children, and a literal shed to a family of 6 that includes a 2-year-old. She raised kids. She has to know that you can't care for young kids without access to running water. I don't know if mother-in-law or sister-in-law was the ringleader here, but they're definitely being a-holes. Not the a-hole. There's no rationalizing this. Why would you get shoved off into a shed with your bigger family with younger kids when sister-in-law's family has fewer people and older kids? At the very least, they should have checked with you if the accommodations are okay. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry, that's just awful. Yes, they cleaned it out, but to be angry when a shed would not work for a family of 6? No running water? I'm particularly disgusted by her remarks to the kids that they don't need to come in the house for anything. Don't second-guess your reaction. That setup was offensive, and they are angry because they are wrong and hopefully mortified, but unwilling to admit it. Small update. I've been beating myself up about this, so it's validating to know I'm not crazy. To those that have said I must know what an inconvenience it would be for anyone to have an extra 4 kids in their house. I know. Trust me, I really do. We're a big family, and it's definitely not for everyone. We try our best to be really aware of that. That said, we didn't have a lot of choices in the moment, and we picked the one we thought would be easiest on everyone. Clearly, we chose wrong. Mother-in-law did call my husband today to see how things were going at my brother-in-law's house. She let him know that sister-in-law went home this morning, and she asked if we wanted to come stay the night this evening. He declined. She did not apologize for the shed arrangements, just said she tried her best. He told her that she should have just called. Her response was that they would just need to figure out a way to add a bathroom to the shed for the future. Husband is a contractor. He said that she is missing the point and we wouldn't be staying in the shed whether there was a bathroom or not, because it's a shed. Well, my ex-wife and I divorced 8 years ago. She had an affair and left me for the affair partner. I know I was a crappy husband back then. I was an alcoholic and I was very verbally A. And 2 years before we ended our marriage, I had stopped drinking. I picked up my crap and tried doing my duties as a husband and started going to marriage counseling, but it was all for nothing. My eldest daughter, however, still chose her mother over me, even with after the betrayal. The other two daughters didn't pick any side and maintained a healthy relationship between us. The divorce, of course, was nasty. She got the primary custody of the kids, got to keep the house, and I had to pay child support, but no alimony was awarded. A few months later, I lost my job. I was unable to pay child support, and I was constantly arrested and put into jail for about 3.5 years. And my daughter, together with my ex-wife, liked watching me suffer. A year ago, my parents died, and since I was their only child, I inherited their wealth, although not much, but still enough. A few months ago, I got a new house. My youngest daughter, who is 18, has been staying with me. Their mother moved into another country with the affair partner. My eldest daughter broke up with her boyfriend and she was kicked out of their apartment they shared. She asked if she could stay in my house, and I refused, and told her to call her mother to come get her. Later, my ex-wife calls me saying I am the a-hole for not allowing my daughter to stay with me, and that it's unfair because her sister is staying in my house. I have to admit, I do feel guilty, but she's also an adult. She can sort her own crap out. But am I the a-hole here? My daughter is introverted and suffers from anxiety. Edit. I tried for years to have a normal relationship with my daughter. Even tried to ask her sisters to have a normal, healthy relationship. But just like her mother, she treated me like crap throughout the years. Even refused to come visit me when it was my turn to have the kids. Yes, the a-hole. You were A during your daughter's formative years. Her choosing her mom over you is the consequence of your decisions. Yes, the a-hole, and you know it. Don't underestimate how traumatic your alcoholism and verbal A was for your daughter. She was 14 when you stopped drinking. Of course she sided with her mother after seeing what you put her through. You should be ashamed of yourself for your behavior when she was a child and trying to make amends however you can, not rejoicing in her misfortune and in your ability to deny her the help she has asked of you. This was your chance to show your daughter that you had changed for the better and to prove that you could be a loving, supportive father. You threw it away out of spite.